we're just going to take a moment and open up and just get present to the presence that's always here with each and every one of us. And today we're going to be talking about how each of us have experienced trusting what comes through us in different ways, and how a lot of the time depends on the perspective that our words may inhibit us, or what actually happens doesn't happen, and the navigating of our journeys. And I'm just going to ask James if you might describe what you just were talking about, synthesis, for our viewers.
Unmute, James. We can't hear you.
Sorry. It started in a painting, the awareness of a symbol of synthesis. Let's see. This is a symbol of the unification of the voice of the soul and the human self. And as it comes together in the reality that is our experience here. And what I said before we started live was that many times through the voice of the ego, we humans are using words that do not vibrationally align with what it is that we desire to manifest, or what the intention it is that we wish to create. The word one in oneness denotes a singularity. And if you went to nature and asked any element of nature, who are you? That element would say, I am nature, because it only knows itself as the whole of nature and not as an individual. So when we shift that awareness from that egoic perspective of how we see ourselves and the world around us into the perspective of the soul is the same. The soul sees us as a whole, as all elements that are unified in synthesis to form this whole of all of this expression. And it is an incredibly empowering place to be, because you step into the day possibly thinking from the egoic self and the individual of, oh my gosh, I've got all this to do. I've got blah, 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 and all that starts to weigh on us. And if we immediately shift that into the perspective of the soul, we get this, oh, how is the universe going to support me today in expressing my highest self? And then we feel the power of all things around us feeding into one another in synthesis, so that we see it from a whole different light. We free ourselves of the fear. We free ourselves of the sometimes what we might choose to take on as the weight of the individual self or the one, and we get rid of that and allow the soul to show us the way of a unified effort and a unified expression of the brilliance of who we are.
Can I just jump in? That was lovely. I was having a thought this morning just before we came on, and like you were saying, it's like we've taught ourselves that we have to do all of these things to become whole. And what came to mind this morning was a little bit more Bible reference sort of thing, was that back in, when Jesus came sort of thing, we'll use this for the example, he didn't walk around and go, you have to do all of these things. He just knew. He just was. Right. And that was what he was trying to teach, is that we all are. We all have that. We are already that. But we spend all of our time just putting up all of these things. I must do this. I must do this. I must do this, because then I'll be who I should be. And not allowing yourself to be in the first place. You know, we've taught ourselves that we're faulty. And yeah, we become addicted to. I read another little thing that where people become addicted to the process of fixing themselves, and that kind of really struck me, because it's something that I kind of recognized in myself up until, you know, a few years ago and whatnot, that I did that. It was like trying to outsource my myself to everyone else, rather than paying attention to me and being present with me. So yeah.
I would say I was addicted in a variety of ways, right? So throughout my life, I just changed my addiction. And I know Thunder Bear and I have spoken many times that, you know, addiction to spirituality is an addiction, right? The concept that we have to do something in order to be has one that I've been unraveling for myself over this, you know, the last few years, especially. I'm noticing right now the forest around me, and the forest it just grows. So I'm noticing in one part where there was just some grass, there's little trees, you know, about 3-4 inches, you know, 15 whatever it is, 10 centimeters. And I'm like, oh, that's a little tree. And then I was like, well, maybe I will dig that up. Well, it's a little tree, and move it over to a place where I'd like to put it, and create more trees. And then I realized, and people might laugh at me, but the tree is actually coming from the root. So the root is this thick, and it's branching off from the root. And so then I look around, I'm noticing there's all these little seedlings and trees popping up. And I'm like, isn't that the concept of source? Source, in the sense, was there, and then it appears that all these little trees are new, individuated experiences, yet it's still coming from the essence of the tree. And it's just natural. It's just popping up, and if I go cut the grass, I'll cut the trees down, right? So it's just this new awareness for me to see how much is actually continuing to grow and flourish when I'm not doing something. Even gardening for me right now, it's like to plant seeds and water them and spend the time on them seems to me a little bit out of whack when I notice that the dandelions and these other beautiful greens and dill, like they're growing everywhere, and they're so healthy, and I can eat them. They're growing naturally, but I've been conditioned to think that they're weeds. So I'm like, want to pull those, and then I want to plant what I want to plant. And for me, I think that's a lot of what's going on, is where people are finding themselves in that sense of, I'm really not just this individual, right? This is for me. I'm really not this. I'm much more. And pretty much everything I've been taught seems to have taken me away from what actually is. That's kind of what's going on for me these days.
That's an amazing expression, because for the past 3 years, I've had a garden right outside my front door, in the little space between my front door and the parking lot here in my apartment complex. And this year, every year before, I've been in the garden, nothing else would grow. It's getting really cold, everything's freezing. So we're clearing everything and putting compost down, and then layers of leaves, and then some, what do you call it, landscaping cloth to kind of put it to bed, give it a cozy bed for the winter, when all I needed to do was just let all of the weeds grow over it and make the bed of its own. Yeah, it is what is hampering, what is deterring or keeping humans from evolving is not being able to get past what we think we know about why we're here and how we're supposed to conduct ourselves, and allowing from the whole to express itself through us and guide us in that way. Yeah. Nature is the greatest teacher. It was always meant that way.
Breaking away from the whole, or breaking away from community, or breaking away from traditions and family, and breaking away, I think, is a lot of what's going on. And I would love to hear from whoever wants to hit that microphone, unmute at first. Amuna or Abdul or Thunder Bear or Wendy, just go for it.
Okay, I won't wait any longer. Well, I hear
We
myself
can't hear
speak
either
enough.
of you.
Yes, I hear myself speak enough, Abdul. I'd like to hear what you have to say. So go ahead, please.
This is called humility at its finest. Thunder Bear's like, you go, Abdul. Abdul, you go. No, Amuna, you go. You go. Okay, I'll pick. I'd like to hear from Love, absolutely, over there in the white. Mr. Abdul, please. We'll start there. Then we'll go to Beauty.
Peace and blessings, everyone. Great to see you this week. I just want to start by acknowledging my experience of last week's meeting, where I didn't appear to be here, but I seemed to be here all at once. When I got the link and I was able to witness the testimonies and the words of everyone, I felt our alignment, as I do today. To the first question or query, when James responded, what was right on the top of my mind as well was definition, how we define these words that we use on a regular basis, and how we have the opportunity and we need to have the courage to redefine them to become more meaningful. And when we have a word like one, for example, which sounds like another word, WON, the brain is confused and it has to decide which lie it wants to believe. What is true? And in the English language, we have so many words that constantly lie, force us to lie, to communicate, to be a part of a society. And so we can move away from that practice by being more honest with ourselves, because I personally remember having this kind of argument with my third grade teacher during a spelling bee that I was participating in, and seeing all these words that sounded the same and was spelled different. And, at that point, she was trying to convince me that that was the truth of life. And so when we start to awaken to the reality that we're living in, when we do the things that we had done to become more aware of ourselves, to arrive where we are today, we start seeing things in a different light. But the decision to be honest, okay, of the oneness, which better identifies our reality, then we have to slow down in our expression, make decisions whether or not to voice at all, because in the silence is where the truth lies. I discovered as I started to travel around, even mentally, and become more aware that we have thousands of languages being spoken on this planet. And what I was blessed to see was it was not the sound that was given the definition, but the space between it. And so to be able to see that, because it really takes the stillness within yourself to realize that when, let's say this sentence of, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. The Word was non-existent in the sense that we know it, but in the beginning was the silence. And that is the reality of God. And that is the reality of the image. As I say, the image and the likeness. Again, we find ourselves in a world that gave us the world didn't give us a body. Our desire to manifest a physical experience, which led to more physical experiences, came with a price of forgetfulness, amnesia, another word that, and we just don't realize that we're struggling against remembering versus forgetting. And then I say they more than we can call this experience dementia at some point, a disease, when in reality we are constantly in a state of survival, trying to remember what our reality really is. My experience from being still allowed me to realize that I was more not here than here, more here than not here. And so to honor my commitment to my other selves, like yourselves, I have to be patient in honoring and allowing, because it's also temporary. But if we can wake up to ourselves, to our reality, to our invisibility, our invisibility, and see how strong we are in that aspect, then everything else becomes larger, greater. The intelligence that is in our universe, that survives our universe, that allows us to be on this rock spinning 11 some thousand miles an hour in the middle of nowhere with solar highlights that allow us to survive, then we can become happy within ourselves. But it takes a sense of awareness. I had an experience recently, the harvest. We harvested some mangoes, yes, but avocados. And when the avocados come down, they're still in a state, some part of their stem is still there. So in order for it to become edible, be willing to give to the humankind, it has to realize that it's separated from its mother, the tree. So it takes time for it to realize its separation before it's in a position to give you the water, which is its substance, right? Avocado or avocado, it's a water fruit, right? So I learned to watch them. You can see them, how they surrender and they start to just relax once they realize they're separated from Mother Earth, the tree. And so when we talk about nature and what it gives to us, because when you're in it, you get to learn from it. Everything that we don't realize, that everything that we do, we got from nature. It's so revealing. And then our sanity can be restored from that. Just from allowing ourselves to listen, to observe all the answers we need to moment to moment situations is right there in nature. And so what is the purpose of our practices, our spiritual practices? It's to allow us to do that, not to get so caught up in the ritual, but to allow the ritual to deliver us to a point of awareness. Agree? So, I don't know. So that's what's on my mind. Definition. I think we have to be courageous enough to redefine the words we use. We have to be more poignant in how we express and don't allow ourselves to continue the illusion, continue to perpetrate the illusion that we created within our societies.
Mhm.
And so what makes us different is our willingness to be courageous and being loving enough. It takes courage just to be loved, just to be still, not to allow people to think that they know who we are today. To think that we're still the same person and that we don't deserve to be seen anew, because this is how we feed ourselves, our our own evolutions of self is if we decide to be an example. So I think our challenge is more about that. And then to I think recognizing when, it's very difficult for me to see individuality because it's like each of us is constantly contributing to the whole. And so what's necessary is that we be that person, that personality, a personality of that whole. And because we have, either way, you can't mess up if you try, but for your own sense of happiness and joy, because what you decide to exemplify always benefits you first. And so with that, the fun begins and the happiness, becomes us,
Well,
So
when you're talking about the words, and I typed out in silence, the truth lies. and then I was like,
truth lies.
okay, so now the truth is lying too. Because, as you're saying, the words we use can be very conflicting and confusing, and they've been conditioned, and it is very much an unraveling. So the space in between the words is where we're learning the gems are.
In silence, the truth is true. So therefore, and that's the design. And see how tricky it is, because and we have to take credit for our past contributions to this creation, right? So it's always us doing this to us, and so lies, a word like that. So these words that have multiple meanings, that's the confusion. And so your brain, we train our brain to accept that which is not true. And we think it's okay. We get through the day. We experience this and we experience that. And we continue to perpetuate it until we end up with an experience that is so big, such a big untrue that it bothers us and we want it to go away. So this is our challenge as light workers, to be courageous enough to be the example, to challenge that which is not true, because we have seen it on our paths. We've seen it in our work, in the miracles that we perform as healers, one form or another. And that amazement, if we just look at it and appreciate it for what it really is saying to us in that instant, we will realize this is our reality.
Thank you.
My case.
We're not on trial here. There's no resting your case. No. We're okay. The jury is out. Okay. Here we go. Amina, you want to jump in?
Hello, my lovelies. I actually went to be naughty a little bit and make a point for the ego. I want to make a point for the necessity of us being in separation in order for us to come back into wholeness. We can never, it can never be an experience of one without the other. That's why this universe is the way it is. It's one of polarity. And as such, only when we recognize ourselves as separate can we actively become whole. I remember last week Thunderbear was talking about how easy it is. And I felt a little bit of resistance inside of myself. I was like, could it actually be that easy? He was like, yeah, you just like, you go like, yeah, that's it. And that's it. And then it's integrated. Like you find it, you integrate it. It's just that simple. Like you don't have to argue with it. And now like, you know, get your shame and guilt and the story about why it is the way it is and why you have to work towards it not being that way. I sat in meditation and I was meditating on forgiveness and I said, I want to forgive. And what came to me was, just do it. Just do it. So, and as such, I think just being able to see ourselves as whole is kind of how we become, how we integrate into wholeness. I loved everything Brother Abdul said with such wisdom and like calm, so beautiful and so true. It is about having the courage to go beyond the mind, you know, because the mind will put all of these little hurdles in your way, on your way to integration. And it becomes a thing of, and he said it so beautifully. He said, what exemplifying what you want to see, those traits that you want to embody, becoming them first benefits you first, which is really true and powerful. And I believe that. And for me, it takes a little bit of work, but when I find myself there, it really is incredible and very, very powerful medicine. When you stand in your power, when you speak truth to power, when you go beyond the shame and the fear. Courage is not the lack of fear, rather it is moving in spite of it. And when we embody that, and we live in a fractal universe, and we are absolutely part of it, and a change that occurs in us internally is reflected in the collective, whether we know it, whether we see it, whether we want it or not. And so just doing the work, just having the courage to embody wholeness creates that for the world in direct and indirect ways.
Beautiful. And I don't think that was naughty.
Yeah, I was expecting something much worse.
Oh, and how much worse were you thinking? I'd like to hop over to Egypt if I could, if Wendy wants to jump in there and make a comment before we go to you, Thunderbear.
Hello, everyone. Great to be here. I'm from New Brunswick, not too far from where Jacqueline is. And we traveled across the world in 2021 to Egypt. So this is where I am right now, and I really resonate with everything that both Abdul and Amuna said. Yeah, like when we can remove our ego and live in a place in our heart and our soul, and not be afraid to be ourselves, to speak up our truth. Like, this is our truth, but for some other people it might not be true, but for us it's true. And accept our, our mistakes and our, because we're not perfect. I like to say that we're flawsome. We're full of flaws, but we're awesome. So once you can get into that place, nothing else matters. You just, you go about your life, your day, and this is just who I am. And if you don't like it, well, you can just turn around and go wherever. That's how I see it anyway. So yeah, so we're all flawsome.
Can you say the awesome one again for me?
Flawsome.
Flawsome.
Like flaw. Yeah, like we're flawed, but we're also awesome. So it's like saying Frienglish, I guess. And I learned that term in I think it's a webinar that I attended anyway, and it stuck with me, and I always say it in all my lives and all that, because we are, and we think naturally, we think that we are flawed because of the way we've been conditioned, but we're not. Like, we're not perfect, but we're also, we're flawed, but we're also perfect or another term that I like to say is that we're imperfectly perfect in our own unique way. So yeah, that's where we need to be, and everybody gets there in their own time. So yeah, so like I said, like when I started to change how I thought and how I lived, and I started to speak my truth, and not please people so much, and learn boundaries and love myself for who I am. I mean, I lost a few friends and family along the way, but that's perfectly okay, because this is where I am right now in my life, and I'm happy. The other way around, I wasn't happy. And I think a lot of people feel like that.
Yes,
And-
I would say
Oh.
yes.
I just wanted to add that this constant striving to be over there is also resistance repackaged. Like this thinking that I have to be perfect, I have to be completely integrated, and I have to be awakened, and not struggle with my humanity. We'll never outgrow our humanity. We'll never not be human. We as spirit chose a human incarnation to experience, like Thunderbear was saying last week, there is no split, there's no separation. The darkness, the light, they go together. The yin, the yang, they go together. And this running away from our humanity for like an endless higher vibrational being it's resistance. It is its own kind of delusion, delulu, if you may. Yes.
That is what I meant when I said it's actually easy, because I think every one of us right now is awesome and amazing as you're ever going to get. It's just our level of honesty with ourselves and where we really are, because it's, we're talking about words and that whole thing, and that whole word game that we play with ourselves is kind of part of the problem. Because like you were saying, Amuna, like I want to evolve and I want to do all this. You already are. You already are. It's just all the human stuff that we've accepted as reality is just giving it up. It's not learning anything new. It's not reading 1,000 more books. It's not 1,000 more programs. It's not 1,000 more whatever you want to do. It's already alive and well in you. And this is just the dawning of the age where we start to realize that, and that we don't have to travel and we're already there. And it's actually way more easy than we've ever known.
Okay, so here's the question. Okay, because if we don't have to learn how to not be our individual response, like if we already know it, or we're already perfect, then the sense of being, is that just what it is? Like, I can see people going, well, what if I don't have to learn how to do it? If there isn't a way for me to unstructure myself or not use those words, or if I'm not learning how to be something, then how do I actually be? Because I've forgotten I've been a human doing for so long and a human thinking. How do I just be a being? Because if I'm just sitting by the river on a rock, I'm probably wasting time procrastinating, not going for my goals. You know, like there's a whole slew of ticker tape of stories. So I'm open to everybody sharing what they feel somebody has to do in order to be.
I think we just are. We talked a little bit earlier about addiction, and you know, I believe in my life I've tried addiction to just about everything at least once, just trying to sort out what, you know, how I fit in this world. And when I was really addicted to the new age thinking, my real brave strategy to save the world was I viewed it as we're on a ladder, which already is kind of screwed up because then you're putting yourself above somebody and below somebody exactly at the same time. But my philosophy at that point, when I was really addicted to that way of thinking, was I have to be motivating the person above me and carrying the person below me. Then I've done my job. And that ladder, you know, that I didn't stay on the ladder very long because I realized I just got to be. I just got to be. That's it. Real simple, not complicated. And that's, you know, like what you're saying, Jacqueline, is the mind and the ego trying to lead the way instead of spirit. You know, because we all wanted to, you know, set goals and do things, and for sure there's something like when you get up in the morning, you make your list of things you want to do, and like, you know, like the basic things to get through the day and that type of thing, for sure, 100%. You know, and that's where I think our ego and view of self is useful, because I don't think we're supposed to throw it all out, you know. And again, I'll just say, like, I just want to apologize if I offend anyone by saying something that they really don't understand or agree with, because my intent is not to offend at all. It's just to expand the conversation. So I don't mean to trample on anyone else's view, because I do really think that we're all climbing up a mountain of some sort, and I can only see the little tiny spot where I exist, and the rest of it is none of my business, you know. And I just, you know, everyone I meet, I wish them well on their journey, no matter what it is. And, you know, at the end of the day, we'll know for ourselves where we are and how we climb and what we're climbing for, and all that is, if it aligns with our spirit, then you got to climb like there's no tomorrow. You know, and to me, that's taken on a different thing, because it's not as arduous as climbing would have our minds kind of be convinced that it should be. In the last few years, to me, it's just being how I believe that spark inside me wants to live. And that's it. I have no other lessons. I have no other goals. It's just to be the best home that I can be for that spark that lives inside me. Because I think I also believe that spark that lives in me is a spark that lives in everything, stuff that we like to classify it as living and other, but like there is only life. Rocks, trees, everything, air. It's all just life, and it all has a spark. And I know it's and people have asked me, how do you deal with that for people that don't believe that? And I don't deal with that. It's none of my business. Just for me, checking in, seeing how my spark is, and having that as the center of my words, the center of my vision, and how I respond to the world. And I am by no means perfect at this. There are days where I lose sight of my spark and say things that, might have been said in much better ways. And that's okay. I can laugh at that. I don't get stuck on that. I don't judge the crap out of myself. I look at that and go, whoa, that was interesting. And I kind of laugh, and I try to do a little bit better the next time. But it's always in like Jacqueline's heard this before, and Tanya's heard this before, is always walk slowly, breathe deeply. And that's it. Put one foot in front of the other. Those two sentences is everything you need to know to find who you are and live it in accordance to the spark that you've been bestowed to take care of. That's it.
Well, 3 easy steps. That's the title of the new program. 3 easy steps to just being. No. Okay. James, what would you like to add?
Sorry, my battery ran out in my tablet, so I had to switch. The only thing I'm inspired to say is that it's an interesting awareness to have that when we came into this world, as the soul stepped into the physical form, as the infant was passing through the birth canal, we came into this physical realm with absolute full awareness of who we are as a soul, full awareness of all that exists in the universe and beyond the universe, beyond the physical form. And only within the first 7 years of our time here did all of that get altered and distorted by the evolution of the egoic self. So if we choose to follow the egoic self, we only go deeper into that. And the moment we let go and surrender, then we can return into the expression of the soul self. And we all have free will for this journey. The earth herself has finished her agreement with Source. She is transforming into a much higher vibrational expression of herself. She agreed to come here, be made manifest so that humans could have a home, so that souls could step into the human form and have that human experience. It's led humans to do what they do today, but yet she is moving on. The paradigms that supported the old duality of egoic self and soul self will no longer exist as she transitions into eating too many peanuts. As she transitions into a higher expression of herself. And in that higher expression, there will be no paradigms to support duality or polarity or those kinds of illusions, because those are based in the egoic self. And as I think Abdul said, you can't get it wrong. There is no wrong choice, where to go, where one is guided to be, or it's just that choosing. And every time we choose, the beauty of what is beyond the physical is that it conspires in favor of that choice. It shows up. If you believe that you are less than, the universe will show up in all kinds of ways to prove that. But if you believe that you have a path of a higher expression and choose to follow that path and allow yourself to surrender, to be led by that path through the voice of the soul, the universe will conspire in favor of that as well. So we didn't come into this world forgetting. That forgetting happened through the first 7 years of our 5 to 7 years of our journey here. That's why we lose our baby teeth, which were our teeth of origin, and we come in with a personality formed after 5 to 7 years. And you can actually read that in the dental structure for a person that hasn't had braces or any kind of alterations. And we carry that through with us until we have rememberings. I call them taps on the shoulder of, wait a minute, there was such a simpler life somewhere back there. When I was 3, or when I was 4, out in the backyard playing with whatever, or seeing all the little things crawling and playing in the mud with them, and not getting a single infection or any problem at all because I was eating mud pies or anything, because I held no sense of duality or no discord with them. I knew that I was a part of them. And so they actually probably nourished me at that point. It was only growing into the ego that has been formed now for quite some time that I created this illusion of duality or polarity and this discord. So now eating mud might not be so good for my belly. And this is just an analogy, just an example of something. And so when I speak of synthesis, I speak of coming back to a place where we truly hold no more illusional polarity or discord with the world around us. We are the only species in the entire universe that has evolved in this way, to live in discord with the immediate world around us and not in harmony. Because viruses, this is something that science can even express really clearly to us, that viruses and the microbiome, bacterias, funguses, and so on, they're all here for our benefit. None of it is here for making us sick or giving us disease. It's our discord through that idea of the illusion of ego or the illusion of polarity or this against that the disease rises. And I think there is a profound validity to finding our way back home, to that synthesis with all that is around us. You know, it's like these ideas of polarity are the foundation blocks of things like racism and other things, because we divide ourselves due to something like the quantity of melanin in our skin, or the texture of our hair, or the language we might speak of birth, where we came from this side of the world or that side of the world, or all of those things. The soul knows nothing of those things. And finding our way into the alignment with that, I feel, can only create harmony. Only create harmony in this world, where that idea of the supportive polarity only creates division. And it creates what we're seeing playing out all around us, because this universe, the entire universe, along with this planet, was created for us to come and express ourselves as souls. That's why we were born with the full awareness of ourselves as souls, and only through time after being here did that become distorted and altered. And it comes down to a free will choice, and there isn't a wrong way. But I for one can say I would sure like to see a whole lot more harmony in the world, where we did live symbiotically and in synthesis, and because even our physical form is altered due to what we believe. You know, there are tribes on this earth. I've seen them myself living in South America. There's a tribe called Pirita in the Amazon, and if you walk, and they're very, probably average height is about 4 feet for both men and women. And if you walk to them and listen to them talk and kind of just observe them in their day-to-day lives, other than taking what little bit of clothing they wear, if you only taking that clothing off, would you know which was a man and which was a woman? The tone of their voices is the same. Their physical strength is the same, because they see one another as whole and of all that is. And there isn't a behavior that's considered feminine or a behavior that's considered masculine. It's all from the perspective of the soul, which the soul holds no awareness of gender. And I don't know. I really am. My intention with all that I do in this time is finding that way back home to a much, much more harmonious place. That, you know, and to hopefully gently speak to something I call the merry-go-round effect. When we ask ourselves to redefine something, it's as if we are literally getting off of one horse on the merry-go-round and getting on another, but yet still on the merry-go-round, because sooner or later we're going to come back around to that same place and need to redefine. If we step off the merry-go-round and find an expansive trajectory, and not depend on words, because words are confining, and because we put definitions to them, then it's this cyclical thing that the egoic self is attempting to keep us on. And having had 2 NDEs, when finally I was sick enough where I couldn't figure a way forward in my life, and disease is what took me to transitioning from this world. It was the moment that I looked at 2 of my best friends and said, you know what, I don't know what else to do. I just surrender. I just surrender my life. And at that moment is when the magic started. When I let go of my ego, thinking, I can fix this somehow, and I just haven't found it yet. Wait a minute, it's under here. Wait a minute, no. It's when you let go and you let the soul come and say, you know what, this was all planned. You are exactly where you are supposed to be, here, ready to transition, so that you can have that experience, be filled with an awareness of that went from this aperture of awareness and just blew it all wide open to something much, much more expansive. And when we can come to a place where we no longer identify with what divides us as who we are and return to that spark, I think Abdul used the spark of light, or whoever used it. When we return to that awareness of that spark of light of who we are, that is when we find synthesis and harmony. And every day in my journey, I'm the more I continue to find that way to surrender into what it is that we are here to express, and forget the egoic self and step back into the light of the soul and allow that be the voice that guides me. I think I hope I find much more harmony with the world around me and all that's in it.
Well, if we see that the world around us is all being who they need to be in that moment in time, then everything is happening in harmony, even though it may seem chaotic, right? Or divided. We're all receiving what we need to receive in order, as you said, if the earth, I've never heard that one before, but if the earth is a she and she's transitioning, I like her story. I think I'm liking her stories better than his story. Greg, that was just for you, Thunder Bear. Okay. But everything is going to be the way it's going to be, and I feel that as I keep looking at myself and I'm more honest with myself about what I'm experiencing in each moment, and that's in every little experience that I'm having, I'm learning to relax and be more at peace with what would have seemed to be an issue or a controversy or a polar opposite previously. It's now just it's like, whoa, I'm noticing that, and can I see that more in alignment? So maybe an example, it's I just finished piling all my winter wood. Okay, now so a few years back when I first left Toronto and I was on Prince Edward Island, I'm noticing people like in June and July, in the sense they're chopping wood, they're putting wood aside, and I'm thinking, what the frig, man? It's summer. Why in the world would they be dealing with wood now? Okay, because I never had to deal with wood, so I never had that experience of wood. So where I might have thought someone dealing with wood was a completely different experience than me, I've now realized that dry and wet wood doesn't mean that the wood got rained on. That the wet wood is because there's more sap in it, then it has to dry out. And I've seen when I've cut a tree that it still sprouts leaves even after that has no, it's sitting in a fence now. And I'm like, wow, how'd you do that? Because there's still life, there's still sap in it. Like when Abdul was saying about the avocado preparing to leave nature. There's so much just in these little experiences of dealing with wood that are beyond my comprehension from how I was raised, but give me this appreciation for being connected to all of this. So where once upon a time I was like, the cutting wood is cutting trees down, we can't do that because we're deforesting, blah 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 blah. I'm now seeing how much the forest has life. I'm communicating with the trees, and I'm now taking this wood, and I'm very much stacked, and I'm I'm completely ready for winter. And then today, what did I see on Facebook? I saw somebody was someone's post, and he was saying, I grew up in a reserve, and my dad, we didn't have much, but my dad taught me a lot of lessons that actually showed me how rich my life was. We didn't have a lot of what we call money, right? Again, this. And he goes, so one of the times it was really hot in July, and he's like, okay, we're going to cut firewood. And he's like, it's hot, Dad. Why would we do that? And he goes, because we never know when winter's coming. And I feel like that's really, when we trust spirit, we don't know what comes next. We don't know what's going to happen in the next 10 minutes, the next hour, tomorrow. But trusting spirit is noticing what each of us are noticing in that moment, regardless of what everyone else is telling us. It's what am I noticing in the moment with me and my tasks and my daily interactions and my conversation. And what am, as Greg said, the Thunder Bear, how honest am I being with myself? And what I found the most freeing is I can continually take honesty to a deeper level and go, wow, you still reacted to that. Thought you were over that one. Okay. Called myself a city girl the other day because I couldn't figure out how to get the power washer going. Right. These just little everyday experiences are what the whole concept of this life is. And as I'm more honest here, I'm more authentic. And if I'm more authentic, then I have that effect. I think it ripples out in my interactions. And that's all I can be, is work on me, be me, right? No more doing, just be whatever's here. And as we all do that, we just see the world shift and change around us. At least that's how I'm experiencing things.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
I'm thinking, listening to you all talking and thinking, like everyone's sort of triggered off a little memory of different things, but I remember, as a child going to school and thinking like, what am I doing here? Like having that memory of that, and then awareness of not just being in a physical body and this and going to school and thinking, what is this? I don't get it. Why am I here? What did I do wrong? And yet being raised with some awareness of spirit and having that encouraged from the very beginning has, I'm forever thankful that I have had that with me from the beginning, because I remember having a conversation with my mum where I was having a big meltdown about something or other, and she was explaining to me, and she said, like, you knowing, having this awareness of knowing what's what anyway, and this connection and feeling what you're feeling, can you then see, like, can you then kind of perceive how those in the world are experiencing their lives with no connection and no awareness, and the depth of what they're going through. So that was a really good learning for me, because it did give me appreciation for what I was connected to, but also much more compassion and awareness and openness for everyone else, those people that don't have that. So yeah, it's just, this is just the thoughts that have popped up in my mind while we talked. So I'm always thankful. I've always been thankful. Thank you, all of you.